Record to the-
All right. Hello, David. Good to see you again, buddy. How you doing?
And you, yeah, I'm good. Ben, yourself?
Doing
Nice to
well.
see you healing.
Yeah. How are things in you're just north of London, was it?
Yeah, about 25 minutes out of London. It's actually a very nice day.
Okay. Awesome. Well, what I wanted to try and do for some of the people out there that I've come to know is to give them a sense of how DBS differs from one place to the next. Because from what I understand, depending on where you are and depending on who you are, things can be done very, very differently. So I
think
guess,
you're right, Ben.
yeah.
Wasn't my
So I guess,
expectation.
sorry.
Sorry, it wasn't my expectation, but talking to different people, there is definitely a difference in how things are done.
Yeah. And also I've come to know quite a few people who have had some pretty bad experiences as well lately. So I've seen how important it is to have a good team around you and have people that you trust on your side throughout this process. But yours was done about a year ago now, was it?
Just over, it was March the 11th. So the reason I remember it so clearly is because it was kind of so close to the start of the lockdown from the first wave of COVID.
So that must have made things even more different from the average person's experience.
Yes,
But I guess, how much do you remember about that day in particular, going back to that event?
well, I remember everything up to it, and then I literally remember the anaesthetic in the back of the hand, and then I didn't remember anything until about 8 hours later.
Okay, well, that's one thing already that's very different from how you did it from how I did it. I was awake for the whole thing. But I guess coming out of it, how long were you in the hospital for?
I was out of surgery on the Wednesday, and I was out of the hospital on the Monday following, because they wanted to clear the beds for COVID.
And this is all done at UCL, right?
Yeah, well, Queen Square, so yeah, it's the UCL team.
Okay. And so you went in. I hope COVID didn't break as you were under anesthesia. Was that not the case?
Well, it probably wasn't far off, to be honest, Ben. As I say, it was full lockdown the following Wednesday, I think.
Wow. Okay.
So if I hadn't have gone in, I would have potentially not had anything done for the next year or so. I think I was literally the last case before COVID. I think they might have done 2 people in September, and then I don't know if they actually started again yet.
Wow. Okay. And how long did it take you to recover afterwards?
I suppose the scars healed fairly quickly. They were probably done in a couple of weeks. So I had the experience of having to kind of drive down to London, wander around with a mask, and have a nurse in full PPE take the staples out.
Wow. Okay. And then how long did it take until the programming began? I'm guessing it took a while because of COVID.
It took longer. So initially when they said I'd go in, they said they'd take me in and they'd keep me in for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
With the plan of going out with it fully tweaked. So I had the operation on the Wednesday, and Friday morning they kind of did some initial testing, and we came up with some basic programs which seemed to make a difference. And then I promptly turned the device off without realizing. So when I went back on Monday, they were saying it's all very well asking you how the programs have gone, but you actually got it turned off.
Okay. Wow. And you had was it Boston Scientific as well?
Yeah, Boston Scientific, Versailles.
Okay, I had the Medtronic device. I wonder how different does your programmer look from what mine looks like? I guess I can show you here quickly. So what I got were these 2 devices. One is like the thing that communicates to the battery in my chest, and the other one's the actual patient programmer, which is just a Samsung smartphone with some software on it.
I've got to say, it looks like it looks like an old Nokia phone.
Yeah, it's an old piece of crap, but it's really just the software that matters.
Yeah. So all I remember saying was, what happens if I lose it? And they were saying it costs about 15 grand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which made me smile, because I was like, yeah, there's pricing to the market, isn't there?
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. I guess going in, or given your background in pharma as well, how much did it live up to your expectations? I mean, how different was the actual thing from what you expected going in?
I suppose it went pretty much as I expected it to be honest, Ben. I went in with pretty positive expectations, and just kind of kept on thinking positively about the whole thing. And so the operation went fairly clearly, if you know what I mean. I was in on time, I was out on time. The thing I remember is drinking water, because they told me they're going to reactivate my kidneys, and basically then being up all night disposing of the water, shall we say.
I see. Okay. And it's now been a year and a half since you had it. How has this year and a half been for you, and how would you kind of grade your experience so far?
So it's been completely transformational, to be honest, Ben. So when you say people have had a bad experience, fortunately, that's not me. It's been an overwhelmingly positive experience. Almost, well, not almost, since they actually put the electrodes in, I haven't gone off once, even when I'm going to return the device off.
That's pretty amazing. It's pretty incredible what this technology is now capable of and what it can do.
Yeah, so you think I was going off 3 or 4 times a day and taking a couple of hours to come on. And then say you saw the cramps that I used to get. I haven't had any of those cramps at all. So it is transformational.
Yeah, and when I last saw you, when I last knew you, actually, you were stabbing yourself in the stomach like 3 or 4 times a day with the morphine pump. I'm guessing you don't have to do much of that anymore now either, right?
Yeah, my drug load's right down. So I was on probably 12 Cinemet a day. I'm down to 2. I was on 24 milligrams of Rapinol. I'm down to 8. I don't take any exenatide. I don't take any apomorphine.
How was the programming process for you? Because I had some pretty weird moments during the programming.
Yeah,
how was it just trying to find?
Yeah. There was one moment where it kind of my face moved, and it's quite off-putting. You say this when your face tensed.
What do you mean your face moved? Literally?
I had a stroke. I felt like this half of my face kind of contracted.
Wow.
On one setting, which was quite off-putting to say the least.
Okay. And what would be your advice, I guess, to other patients who are considering DBS now? What do you think they need in place? What do you think they need to know before going in?
Well, I think you've got to be fairly confident it's going to work. So I think your dopamine test for me is the really key thing. I think if you're not responding to dopamine, you might want to think twice about the DBS.
Okay. And what about, would you have any advice to neurologists or to professionals in the industry as well, about how to improve this going forward for other people?
To be honest, I think if you could speed the process up of actually screening and whatever, it did take about 2 years to get through it, which seems to be kind of overly long. You could actually stream it much more clearly. And I suspect if you got the MRIs in the right place, you could rule out people with old brains very clearly as well.
Okay. What about the battery part? Because that's, for me, still been the most annoying part of this whole process. How long did it take until you adjusted to the battery being in your chest and this wiring through your neck as well? Or was that easy for you?
So that was fairly straightforward. It healed pretty well. So I've got into the habit of just kind of sticking the thing around my neck. So you get like this little harness with the Boston, he's a Boston Scientific. So it kind of, you got to weigh it this side, and the kind of the battery kind of charging piece sits over your chest. So I just tend to stick it on for half an hour on a Sunday morning, and it just goes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like kind of the world to know or to say to people about this whole procedure?
Well, it's kind of, as we always say, Ben, it's kind of a journey of one, isn't it? You know, my seamless journey may not be your journey, so be prepared for kind of all eventualities. And so I was very, very clear that I wanted to know that the risks of infection were very low where I went, because for me that was the most scary thing.
Yeah, same here as well. And yeah, you're right. It very much is an N of 1, and all the studies in the world can't tell you what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's it. So for me, it has been overwhelmingly positive, and I used to respond well to dopamine. I've responded well to this.
Okay.
It's a question of getting your head around the fact that the underlying disease is still going on, and this is obviously just masking it. So there's always the question: is it going to break out someday? are you going to regress? But say it's going back and just thinking it's giving me time now. Sadly, COVID's kind of stuffed that up a little bit, but.
I guess one last question I would have is, because this is the biggest effect that it's had on me, I think, how has it impacted your outlook on the rest of life and the rest of your life in particular?
It's probably made me a little bit more selfish, to be honest, Ben. I suppose I'm just a bit worn out after trying to get Well and Phoenix off the ground. I was just thinking today, should I be having another go? And it was like, I don't know if I've got the energy. If it comes to it, that I really want to kind of spend over and above kind of a little bit more of enjoyment. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, I guess we can turn off the recording now. I think that's all that I really wanted to get out of that. So yeah, if you have a chance, just whenever you have a chance, I should say, just send that file over and I'll